interest.
Thank you, Mr. President, and to members of the Senate. I passed out on your desk some information I want to share with you. It is an article about Matthew Shepard. And for the next 2 days after today, I'm going to take my 5 minutes to give a point of personal interest as it relates to hate crimes. And perhaps every day next session, I want to do it. And I just want to say that it is not my intent to be hostile. It's not my intent to be confrontational. I just want to share information concerning why it is so important. I have also resisted any calls that I've received from national press to actually talk about South Carolina and why we do not have a hate crimes bill. However, I think over the next several months, there will be lots of opportunities to really talk about it. And again, I am not here to make it personal. I'm not here to be hostile about it, but just to share with you because I think it's so important. Matthew Shepard is where many say this really began. And in order for you to understand perhaps why hate crimes is so important, and I would tell you, particularly to this senator, it is because of this case, Matthew Shepard's case. I was in the state Senate at the time as a young minister in the state Senate that had just been elected in 1996 to be a pastor of a church. And so it wasn't something that was on my radar. And in fact, my conversation with a lot of ministers, Reverend, was that they had their doubts about it. But when I shared the Matthew Shepard story, it really changed a lot of minds of my colleagues. And I just want to briefly share it with you, and I'll take my seat. Matthew Shepard was 21 years old when he was brutally murdered. He was born December 1st, 1976, grew up in Casper, Wyoming, how ironic. One of only 2 states does not have a hate crimes bill. Matthew Shepard then moved with his family to Saudi Arabia. He went to school there in both high schools in Wyoming and in Saudi Arabia. He was a leader, elected as a peer leader, counselor, was voted or made to, was nominated as one of the most friendly people in his class. Matthew's college career, eventually after college, his career took him back to Wyoming, where he studied political science and foreign relations. But on October the 7th, 1998, at age 21 years old, Matthew Shepard was brutally abducted, murdered, drove him to a remote area location, beat him, left him on a fence post, stripped naked, pistol whipped to death. So much so that when those who found him saw him, they thought he was a scarecrow, stripped, 21 years old. Perhaps his only fault was that he had come out and said that he was gay. And because he did, there were some who could not take that. This is where was a paradigm shift to some of my colleagues in the ministerial field, because I think they began to see people for who they are and not what labels that were cast upon him. Matthew Shepard was found 18 hours later by a bicyclist who I said earlier thought he was a scarecrow. They left him 21 years old to die. And here's how it impacted my life, because at that time I had 2 young sons. And I thought, how would I feel if this had been one of my sons? For whatever choices they made in their life, whether we agreed or disagreed, how would I feel? And so we introduced hate crimes bill in the South Carolina Senate. And to the credit of this Senate, that bill passed on March 18th, 1999. There were other ministers that were in here. There were other people that were in here. I had friends of mine from across the country who called, and they said, we've changed our position. Pastors of thousands of members, Southern Baptist pastor. I'm a graduate of CIU University. It's one of the most conservative theological schools in the country. Some of my dear friends are missionaries all across the country. I'll never forget that I had one called me, tears in his eyes, and he said to me, I've never seen anything more brutal than this. This young man at 21 years old, if he had lived, he would be 46 years old today. Matthew Shepard's case is the case that initiated federal hate crime laws all across the state. South Carolina Senate was commended, said that we had the courage to do what others had not done. No other state in the Southeast had a hate crimes bill. Now, listen to this. Every state in the Southeast, with the exception of South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Alabama, Mississippi, Alabama, Mississippi, both have hate crimes laws, but South Carolina. Senator, it would be my intent, Mr. President and members of the Senate, for the next 2 days and perhaps every day in next year's session is to take my 5 minutes and to share with you why I think it's so important that we do not be one of 2 states joining Wyoming, where Matthew Shepard lived and where he died, not to have a hate crimes law. Thank you for your time. I look forward to talking with you more tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator from Fairfield.